Certainly, the knowledge economy seems to prefer work from home. I mean, if you're working on a computer and you don't need to interact with people, and you got kids or family, you're inclined to stay home. So that seems to be a sticking point. Younger people probably have their own motivations. But there was a good stat on telehealth. I'm just trying to find it. And I think telehealth surged during COVID. And 36% of patients used a telehealth service in 2021, 420% increase over 2019. And so despite some reversion post-COVID, post-lockdowns, there's a significant sticking point that, and I think 60% of telehealth patients are women. So there's particularly female services that are being rendered through telehealth at an increasing rate than pre-COVID. And so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, look, we've all had to go sit in the doctor's office for 2 hours to get some prescription or get a doctor to give us some advice on something they don't need to physically check us out for. So, it certainly seems to be a acceleration in that department. Offices. What was Amazon was working on 15 warehouses they shut down as well, right? I mean, if you guys remember at the start of COVID, when you'd place something on Amazon, it was like a 2-week delay because they didn't have enough capacity to fulfill the order volume. You looked at Toby's chart, it's nearly a doubling in e-commerce volume in a week. When that happens, Amazon's, plus or minus 5% supply chain has to revert to servicing twice as many customers. It's just not going to happen. So they overbuilt, tried to get ahead of the curve. Remember, they hired 100,000 workers, and they had to make a pipeline for quarters ahead to build warehouses. Now they're realizing the demand's not going to be there, and they're cutting back on 15 warehouses around the country and not going to build them.
They were buying up so many warehouses. I had a couple of companies that were looking for warehouses in Los Angeles, Northern California, and Amazon just bought an option on every single warehouse they could find, and now they're putting them back on the market. So they definitely went too heavy, and then everybody started betting on Peloton and Teladoc. And if you look at Teladoc, I mean, it's off 90% from the peak. I would show the Peloton chart as well, but that would just be gratuitous.
Some of the stuff to note is, at the end of the day, whatever product is better for the consumer, they're going to pick. What's the better way to buy shirts? What's the better way to get...
Well, define better.
Yeah, I mean, for the consumer, it's do you want to try them on, or do you know your size, right? Do you buying a brand that and a size you're going to buy it online at this point? I mean, the one thing COVID did is it basically created a trial by fire. My parents never used DoorDash before COVID. So then they were forced to use DoorDash during COVID. Now they know what it's like. And so, there are now people that never trialed a lot of these services that have trialed them and are now making decisions based on that experience.
But that's a beautiful example. So just use your parents. Why do you think, let's assume they did, why do you think they mean reverted to now using DoorDash only in the same percentage as they would have otherwise X of a little bit of
I think the quality of the food, the time to wait, the experience of going out to dinner, there's a lot of motivating factors that are different by different demos. And so whatever the consumer wants, they're going to pick. If I want to go have a dining experience in person with my friends, I'm going to go do that instead of sitting at home, ordering DoorDash and having everyone come sit on the couch and eat dinner together. So I think that there's this, this call it mean reversion, but we have seen, call it a broader exposure, and we're really going to see the true market dynamics play out. I don't think everyone wants to buy shoes online. I don't think everyone wants to buy every piece of clothing online. I think people want to go to the store and try stuff on.
I think it's that, and I think that there's a lot of ancillary social benefits that come with a lot of these activities that you lose if you just optimize for efficiency. So to your point, yeah, you can get a burrito, but even going to Chipotle with your friend is more fun.
Totally. Get out of the house.
Get out of the house, shooting the shit,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's and the serendipity. Yeah, you may run into somebody. Nothing beats that.
I will tell you, by the way, I do believe that there is a counter narrative to the idea of work from home and e-commerce moving together. I think as people work from home, they want to go be in person for other activities more.
Yes.
So the more you're working from home, the more you want to go to dinner with people or lunch to people, the more you want to go shop in person because you're stuck in the house all day and you want to go do other stuff. And so if you're working in the office, you're going to do more e-commerce. And if you're working at home, you're probably going to do less e-commerce. So there's probably some net balance. We saw both of them rise together during COVID, but now there's more of an equilibrium being reached.
Well, I mean, if you don't,
and by the way, I think we're
change your behavior, you may stay home for 3 days straight, and all of a sudden,
remember,
whoa!
And just remember, 60% of the U.S. population lives in urban areas where this is kind of an effective kind of conversation we're having. I think outside of that, it's a very different world. And so, for 40% of Americans, this is not like the conversation that in deeply suburban and rural areas.